Welcome to the Moon God Pod. I'm your host, JwowLax, and this is always a special occasion when we have LoveOx on, but today is even more special. He is my co-host. He is one of my best friends for over 20 years, and in the previous episode, I had my friend Brian Joes from Pick Up the Six podcast to interview me and kind of give insight onto my Aku story. Today, it is just me and the big guy, LoveOx, and his Aku journey. LoveOx, how we doing today, brother?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Uh, you know, it's we do these podcasts early in the morning to compensate for you and your work schedule, and you've already put in a couple miles on the odometer while I've been sitting patiently watching Netflix,
Sounds about right.
putting in the work. Um, so far, this is kind of a monumental episode in the Aku scheme of things, episode 10 for us. And 10 is a pretty important number because in order to become a moon guide, you needed to collect the 10 chapters, the Aku chapters. Um, just want to kind of, jump into it. What was your introduction to Aku? Now, my introduction was because of you, and I'm going to give you the credit for kind of stumbling across it first. So take us away.
Yeah, I guess I'll start back to my very first voyage into crypto. I was at a poker game in San Diego. I forget the name of the poker room. It's about 45 minutes outside of San Diego. I finished a long conference, and I head out. I on the was it I-35, I think is what you guys call it. I drive about 45 minutes. I get to the poker room, really enjoying myself. And at the time, I buy in fairly deep. So I'm deep, and there's these other guys at the poker table, and we're all playing. And I noticed they could actually care less about the actual money being thrown around, and they weren't paying attention to bet sizes or anything. They were just talking about this cryptocurrency stuff. And all I heard was Ethereum, 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 Bitcoin, 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 Ethereum, Ethereum, Ethereum. And that resonated with me. Like these guys had all this money in front of them, but could care less about what was going on at the actual table. So that weekend, I went home and I read everything I possibly could on everything, cryptocurrency related. At that point, I bought my first Bitcoin. I believe I bought it for around $400 or $500 and some Ethereum, and I think it was $75 or $85 at the time. So I was like, you know what, let me grab some of this stuff. So what that did was I began my voyage into ICOs. And for those who've been around for a while, that stands for initial coin offering. So I bought Cardano when it was a third of a cent. I bought a lot of the gaming tokens when they were half a cent. So I accumulated these large bags of altcoins, not really knowing what they were. So it was my first time to see the power of crypto and just how fast money could be made. So literally, you're seeing 14, 15 X's overnight. You're these numbers that you've never seen in your entire life, and it's just the biggest adrenaline rush I've ever seen in my life. So I'm playing that game. I'm playing that game. I'm playing that game. These things are exploding. I'm calling family and friends like, "Oh my God, you got to look into these altcoins. It's amazing. You got to check it out." And lo and behold, things started to teeter a little bit. We started to see some downward action, and then I became the guy who accumulated all these altcoins, and I sold them all because I got scared. The market crashed, and I'm like, I'm out. I'm never touching crypto again. It's the devil's music, and I don't want anything to do with this ever again, right? So even though I sold everything, I still had an itch. The itch was still there. I'd still like peek on occasion. What's Bitcoin doing? What's Ethereum? What's going on over there? I never could quite quit it, like a bad ex-girlfriend or something, right? So I'm reading, I'm learning more, and I discovered conviction, right? I discovered what it means to know something in a way that other people's don't, so you can appreciate the value in it. So at that point, everything crashed. I forget the exact year that it was, but I started accumulating cryptocurrency again. I was buying Bitcoins, I was buying Ethereum, I was buying Cardano. I was slowly getting acclimating myself back into the ecosystem. Well, at that time, I'm hearing this buzz phrase known as NFTs. I'm hearing it from everywhere. I'm listening, and the first NFT I ever purchased, and this kind of got me on my journey, was on the Wax blockchain. There's a DJ, a famous DJ known Dead and he was having it released. And the way it works is you buy these packs, and these packs have a chance for rarities. And if you hit certain rarities, then it's going to there's a chance to make some money. So I bought 10 packs for $20 a piece. I think I spent $200, and lo and behold, I hit the most valuable NFT in that pack. I have a frame in my office of that in the first really NFT that I purchased and made money on. So I uh I initially listed it for 5 grand. I'm like, we're gonna list it for 5 grand. I don't know what it was, but I went for a walk and something told me, you know what? Let's raise that 5 grand to 11 grand. And I don't know why I did it. I don't know what it was. I go to sleep, I wake up, and lo and behold, I've sold my first NFT for $11,000. So I bought an NFT for $200 and I sold it for $11,000 within 48 hours.
When
Please go ahead.
can we get the date, like the time frame of that? Like, because I know where we're getting to, where you and I started really kind of talking
I
hardcore
wonder
about this.
the date on that. Let me do some. I don't know the date. I have this here. The date is not on it though.
It's got to be 2019, right before COVID. Or no,
Let's
2020.
let's see if I can Google it real quick. I don't want to kill your momentum. I apologize, but maybe I can find it really quick.
Well, it's interesting because you and I have known each other for a very long time, since we were young pups, teenagers even, and I remember, you know, this Bitcoin, Ethereum, just not knowing anything, and I gave you some shekels to parlay with yours, and then of course, the touch of death, everything crashed, and that I didn't have the introduction you did, but at the same time, you know in this space we constantly say do your own research, and I was just trying to hitch my wagon. um I It was a very interesting time because you know Bitcoin had gone to 20,000, and just to kind of uh give an interesting story that I have. I was actually mentoring this young guy. He was about 19 in college, and he was trying to get this social media company going. Well, he had some success, wasn't very good at running a business, so he actually sold all of his contracts for about 300,000, which was a big win for. And he's like 19, 20, and immediately put everything, probably like 80% of that, into Bitcoin, and then it went to like 20,000. And so, you know, I'm seeing all this, and I'm like, tell me more. And then, of course, everything kind of, crashes, which is kind of where we're at today. Do we find the date for your dead mouse?
December 9th, 2020.
Right. Oh, wow. So this is going to be very interesting, because the time space continuum of NFTs, and how long it is in what I'll call real life versus how long something takes in NFTs. I was thinking it was a couple months before Top Shot, but it really wasn't.
No, no, it was December 9th, 2020. So I was exploring all things wax, and then I hear folks talking about Nifty Gateway, like, hey, you gotta take a look at the Nifty Gateway. And at the time, I'm like, there's these releases by these folks named Xcopy and Ferocious and Beeple, and luckily I was curious, right? And I had some disposable income at the time, so hey, let me buy a couple of these pieces, and they've done quite well. And to this day, I still have some Beeple, some Xcopy, some Ferocious stuff, just because, to your point, I was early and I was curious. So that's it's interesting a role that timing plays.
So then we get to where you and I really kind of connect in as far as NFTs, and what is probably the biggest onboarding of NFTs. Um, I can't remember who wrote the article about the John Morant Top Shot.
Uh, it was one of the DFS guys.
Yeah. So there's this article that comes out. You hit me up. We're both basketball guys. You play college ball. We'll touch on that in a bit. But um, that was what, like, now, like, I don't understand anything about cryptocurrency. Certainly when you were telling me about this guy Beeple and an NFT, and I was just like, hey man, if you want to spend a couple $100 on it, like, and you've got it, like, what's the difference between that and being at a poker table or a craps table? Good luck. But when the basketball came around in Top Shot, our first uh, real pack drop was the Holiday Hoops series, and you were basically like, figure it out, like let's do this. Um, what was it? How did you find out about Top Shot? Was
I've
that
heard about Top Shot a lot. Like I through various channels and things and the media that I follow and certain groups, they were mentioning Top Shot, Top Shot, Top Shot, but I never actually like, you know what? Hey, this is interesting. Let me jump into this. So, um, I don't know what it was that made me actually pull the trigger, but I like, hey, this is kind of a cool concept, right? You buy these packs, you open these packs, and I am a big basketball fan, and it was unique, it was refreshing, it was new, and I like, hey, this is I like this experience, and like they had the cool music at the time when you opened up the pack, and it just felt like something new and exciting, and at that point, I contacted you and I said, hey, let's crack some of these packs, because at the time that we kind of found it, it was the tail end of when you can still buy packs and they were still available. That wasn't an issue anymore, right?
Series One? Yeah.
Yeah, Series One. We got in at the tail end of Series One, and then the holiday hoops comes out, and I couldn't get a pack, but you were able to get a pack, and boy, did you bink the pack that you were able to open.
I had to sit in my car to make sure I had a good enough cell connection. I think I've just driven, like I went to the store or something like that. You're like, it's getting ready to go. And I'm in the car. And then I was like, I think I got it. I think I got a pack. And I was like,
Yeah,
open this up. And we'd already bought a couple packs just to kind of see. And it was kind of, the marketplace was very low. It's like it wasn't a big deal. So then we opened this pack, and not only was it was Jason Tatum and Carl Towns gold, and then there was also the Grail piece for that release, Mr. LeBron James.
it was a hell of a pack open.
Yeah, and and then we go on this crazy run because I sold those two metallics for probably about like $150 for the both of them, and we ended up deciding on a figure, and we let go of the LeBron, which kind of now I'm in. You're dead mouse, my LeBron. Now I'm playing with house money,
Yeah,
and then we go on this crazy run through Top Shot through January, and it's fascinating, and I really want you to kind of shed light on this about being early, because we really connected in that very first, like the Top Shot Discord. Like I didn't know what Discord was, and we met some awesome guys. Like Alan was really active, who's like on the creative side of Top Shot, and I believe he's still there. But also a great guy out of Australia named Wade, and it was so amazing because if you were a month before us, you were a whale, you know,
absolutely.
and
Yeah,
and then a month after we're in, people are considering us whales, you know, which I always call us orcas, but
no, I think timing is everything in this space and really in life in general. So I think it's important when something catches your attention and it strikes your curiosity. You owe it to yourself to explore it, to say why is this interesting to me, and especially when you're talking about new markets, new emerging technologies, it's never a bad thing to be curious and to try to understand more, in my opinion.
So the first NFT that I bought was the Dota Championship rings.
Hmm.
And you were the one that turned me on to that. I didn't know what I was buying. And as we will later realize in this NFT space, so to give this some great context, Linux is a bull in a china shop at the poker table. Like he is table captain. There's 10 years of professional poker experience in playing at the highest
Oh.
levels. I'm the biggest nit. And so you would think that that would translate to this. How many you bought, like two or three rings, I think, and I end up buying 10.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. No,
And
it's funny if you sit down at a 2-5. My game of choice is 2-5 as opposed to 5-10. We're going to put the money in. That's my slogan as the table captain, and I'm definitely going to increase the pace and make people uncomfortable and put you in spots. It's just what I like to do. However, when it comes to it's funny because in my job, I am I'm a decision maker when it comes to math. So math decides my my moves. Where I've been at the poker table before, and the guy was like, "Are you sure you're in math? Because everything you're doing right now is so erratic. It's so erratic that I have no idea what's going on." But to answer your question, when it comes to NFTs, it was more of collecting what I liked. So if something resonated with me, if I liked the art, if I liked the artist and what they were attempting to accomplish, I could collect it, I can put it away forever, and I never saw it from a monetary perspective.
Hmm. And how did we come to finding Micah? Because at that point now we're starting to like it became you set your alarm clock for me it was 3 o'clock Pacific time, and there was going to be some kind of drop, and it was literally like almost everything you could buy at that point you could instantly flip for some level of a profit. And if you think in terms of just actual investing, and of course no financial advice here, you know if you can get 5 to 10% return on your money in a year, like you're doing really well. And in this, we're talking like 2, 3x within 30 minutes.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where we were at in the space. And then you see the statue. There was an auction, and this is where you did all this number crunching in your regular job. You're a little more cautious in what you like, and now you're deciding to kind of make a big boy play for the Micah Johnson one of nine statues.
So I would say up to that, I became a Nifty Gateway degen. I may or may not know a guy who had 10 devices going on at the same time with going through all the lottery process and doing quite well doing that. I know a guy who did that, right? So I had a lot of wins on Nifty Gateway. So I'll forever be grateful to Nifty Gateway and NFTs because at that time I think I was really able to capture what was going on in the moment, right? So I have so many great pieces. I was able to get out of some great pieces and get into other pieces. So really thankful for Nifty Gateway to my like true like vehicle into NFTs. When it came to Micah, and correct me if I'm wrong, did we interview Micah before the drop or was it was after? Okay. So because I was on Nifty Gateway all the time and I was really good at catching things that resonated with me. At first, I saw chapter one and I'm like, wow, that is absolutely incredible. Like, who is this guy? And then I noticed that on top of that, in my estimation, and this may be wrong, like I'm sure people will correct me, but I felt like this was the first statue that was ever accompanied by an NFT. Obviously, the message behind Micah Johnson is, um, can a young black boy be an astronaut, right? And that resonates with me as a person of color. And I'm like, you know what? I have to have this statue, right? I want it. I want it to be in my collection. Now, the issue back then was it was a blind auction and you had no idea what the actual price was, right? So it's like, how do you come up with a price that could actually win this thing and what do you do there? So my first inclination was hit up a bunch of folks like, hey, do you want some of the statue? Do you want any of this? I think this could be a big deal. Like this Aku thing, I think it could be a movement. Unfortunately, I guess fortunately, unfortunately, not really many takers. So I said, you know what? My favorite number is 22, right? So I'm gonna put out a big number with a bunch of twos in it, and we'll see what happens. If it hits, it hits. If not, so be it.
Well, obviously it hit. So the 22 was the lucky number.
Yeah, so I got statue number 5 of 9, or I guess it's 5 of 10, I should say. And I am an owner of the statue that's tied to the NFT for the drop, Michael's original drop.
It's it was interesting when you showed me that clip because I was dabbling with Nifty Gateway, but I was still very cautious. And in my again, the Top Shot basketball thing just resonated, so I was more geared towards putting in my money um, in that regards. When you showed me Genesis and said you need to check this out, and then the statue, and like I missed my opportunity to kind of buy a piece of that statue. Um, but there was definitely something there. And at that time, we were doing the Top Shot podcast. which we got to like 20, 25 episodes. But about halfway through, we realized like there was something more, just it had to be more than just Top Shot. And I reached out to Micah, and I think you were like, yeah, sure, he's going to come on our little podcast. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. And that's what changed the game for us. And it's interesting because when we do these episodes, um, there's some great, interesting stories and content. But then we always have a chat, usually like after we stop recording. And, it's just human nature that, when you're not being in front of a camera, you're just more yourself. And that's where it just made sense with Micah. Like this guy was on like just a different level and had a different vision.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Talking to him and kind of seeing where his mind was, and really what drew me to him was his work ethic, like how committed I felt he was to the project and how much he wanted to succeed. I'm a big believer in the subconscious and really like belief in kind of thinking things through and seeing things that maybe no other folks see. And I think Micah has that same kind of thought process and with all things Aku. So I believe his belief is contagious and is what really it drew me to the project and continues to keep me inside the project.
So again, we ask people all this, and now I'm going to put you on the spot. So when someone sits there and says, "What is this Aku thing that you are a part of, that you're doing a podcast about?" What is the best way to explain it in a fashion that could potentially onboard them?
I struggle with this. This is a question I ask all guests because I don't have a great answer for it. But if you're putting me on the spot, I'm going to say I've heard other folks say it, but it's a movement, it's a belief, it's a message that it's a message of positivity. We all can do it. There's a collective, you know, there's just an energy to it. Like I almost call it like a vibration. Like we all can do this. We all can thrive like communally if we put our minds together, like we can do whatever it is that we're trying to do. And I think that in a nutshell kind of describes it as a movement. I know I didn't really answer your question, but it's so many things in once that I just think I would almost describe it as a certain kind of energy.
How important is not just the movement and the idea, but like I really sense that the world needs this, whether the world's ready to accept it, but I like it just seems like the timing for Aku, and when you really kind of dive into the community and the people that are supporting it, I mean, you talk about the true melting pot of society. How important do you think it is, like on that level for like society to kind of become aware of something that's actually positive? Like, let's talk about here's a guy that's doing something, you know, um, technologically revolutionary, but also, with the movement. How do you see it resonating with the society?
Well, I think it's extremely important. I have a 7-year-old son, right? So I'm going through all the kid TV shows and listening to what he's watching, and now he's kind of found YouTube and he's found Mr. Beast and he's found a couple of other things. So I get a chance to kind of study what he's watching in greater detail. And I'll tell you, from everything that I've seen, we need the message of all can thrive. We need the message of positivity. We need the message of just being able to do more without all the bombarding of things that our children are seeing these days. Like I don't know how many positive messages, I mean, forget the kids, but even adults, like how often do you read an article or watch the news or read a Twitter thread of positivity? So I think it's lacking. So I definitely think whenever you have a message that's really ingratiated in love and that's kind of where it's coming from and trying to spread that message, I mean, I think it's fantastic.
As far as like your personal journey, and you said like you resonate with the character Aku, kind of just tell me about like you as an athlete, because I wasn't you're for those that don't know, Lennox is a little taller than I am, and at one point was a better basketball player than I. It's very debatable now. Um, I really connected with Micah, and I'm not a baseball fan per se, but there's something that I think that high level athletes, and I'll even go to college because a lot of people are good enough to play high school, you know, but to be able to play college and then for him to like make it to the pros, we all know the talented player on the playground that never made it. So to have something to go to that next level, how do you see like your life mirroring that, and and tying it in with like just like maybe a connection with Micah, and then certainly like the project in general?
Yeah, I think athletics is struggle, pain, heartbreak, anguish. So for me in particular, right? So my athletic journey, I never played basketball into my senior year in high school, in which, I used to live in Atlanta and I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm actually 6'8". I'm quite a bit heavier than I was in my playing days. Right now, I'm probably around 325, but in my playing days, I was closer to 250. And I remember, I'll never forget, I was on campus at my high school in Charlotte, and the basketball coach comes up to me and he says, "Hey son, like you're playing basketball." He never saw me play, he never said anything, and he's like, "You're playing basketball." So I tried out for I was on the basketball team, and within the first week I had 6 scholarships, with the biggest being the University of Virginia, right? So I could play a little bit back in the day, right? So at that time, my best friend received his scholarship offer to Appalachian State, and I was like, you know what, I want to go to App because my best friend went to App, so I ended up going to Appalachian State. And as luck would have it, or luck wouldn't have it, I hit the injury bug, right? So in my college career, I tore my ACL twice. I've torn quad muscles. I've fractured vertebrae in my back. I've had stress fractures in my foot. Like it was an exercise in futility rather, and it was probably amongst the most difficult things I've ever done in my entire life, and probably will be. If you're a 250 pound or 260 pound guy and you got to run a 7 minute mile in order to qualify for practice, I mean, you're booking it, and it's definitely mentally taxing. So I say all that to say that I resonate with the struggles that Micah had as a minor league baseball player, trying to make his way to the big leagues. I'm sure that a lot of the trials and tribulations that I had are mirrored with Micah, and maybe even on a greater level. So when it comes to his struggle, I definitely identify with that.
There's a great quote from a movie. God, I'm losing it, but it's from Moneyball, and there's a scout talking to the younger version of Brad Pitt when he was like a recruit, and he says, we're all told that we can't play the kids game anymore. Some are just told a little older than the others, like
Mhm.
there are kids that never made the high school basketball team, and it's like you can kind of keep playing, but you're not going to play, like on the real level. I look at like where Micah was at in his career, and just making it to the show is an accomplishment. Um, but I think it's almost as if, like, let's just say like he had like a really stellar career, you know, I think that would almost take away potentially, because like I think he still has like some motivation within him. It's kind of like he's still got some swings left in him. He's just moved it into this world, and
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I feel like we see that a lot. You know, dude doesn't, dude is on planes, and and it's like you can, if you just look, like from the outside without context, it's like, man, this guy's always flying around and living the life. But then when you actually like, when I he came to LA for LA NFT conference, and my guy just looked like he hadn't slept in a couple days. It's like, we met up for drinks, and it was for sure he wanted like just a coffee or something to keep upright. And that's, like it can't say enough about the dude. And I certainly love the fact that he's so connected to this community as well. um, when he was much more active, in the earlier days of Aku, you know, it just makes sense now that like you know it was almost kind of like, hey man, get out of the Discord. Like, don't you have bigger stuff to do than to talking to us. uh
Sure.
Anyways, I just I look at this project and I look at like the connections. Again, we've known each other for so long, but it is one of the best products, byproducts of the NFT space, and certainly Aku, is being able to have these conversations and do this podcast alongside, my best friend, and being able to just like every day there's kind of something to talk about. Um, we call each other pretty much every day. Is that something that is like these connections and friendships, like how ours is in real life, but like the connections and stuff that you've made within the community, like how real are they compared to like the real life? Like, do you believe when people say like, "Oh, I've made lifelong friends"?
Yeah, for sure. I'm not the most necessarily the most active person in Discord. I'll read it, but I don't really like. I'm much more of a give me a call as opposed to
Yeah.
type. But there's definitely folks who truly have made lifelong connections just getting to know each other over the internet. Like I think I'm like the minority. Like again, I'm more of, hey, like do not text me. I am anti-text. Like if you if you want to talk to me, let's talk on the phone. I'm not a text guy, but I really appreciate, like I see that glitches just killing it. Like that guy is always on and always active in the Discord. There's never a question that I've had, or there's never somebody who's had any issue that he hasn't resolved. And then you have all his mods, and you have the folks who just show up every day with their lunch pill, like Uramanu in particular. He's always kind of mixing it up. And you have, I mean, I can't even think of all the names, but to answer your question, like, yes, I think that there's real community being built each and every day from all the folks that participate in the Discord.
And let me kind of clarify, because now that I think about it, I think it sounded kind of like being a hater a bit. The Aku community, I feel like it is a totally different vibe within it, where I've been a part of other communities, and as soon as the floor starts dropping, like the happy days, and like, oh, we're proud to be a part of whatever, go away quickly. And we've been kind of up and down, just NFT and crypto in general, but like even in Aku, like we've seen in the course of 2 years where, chapter three, the holy, key to becoming a moon god, it was minted for 1,000. At one point it was like at 6,000 over, I guess about a year ago, year and a half. And then like it pumped to like 30, and then it went back down to like 10. And then, with the run up to the Akutars, it was, I think one even sold for 80 or 90. And now we're, kind of back down. But the most of the people, the core people, have kind of stuck around. And once you kind of really kind of connect, now the Moon God channel is different in itself. I think we're very fortunate for that. Like I think that makes us a little bit more connected. Um, what has been, in your journey just in NFTs and stuff, what's been the biggest lesson that you've kind of learned, from a collector investor standpoint, but also about yourself personally?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I would ask anybody to ask themselves a question. Why am I buying this? When it came to Aku, when it came to chapter one, I bought it because the art resonated with me. The message resonated with me. I think a lot of newer, I hate to say the word investors or collectors, or a lot of people who enter the NFT space, they come in with the mindset of, I'm going to make $1 million tomorrow, right? So as prices shake down, as markets deteriorate, as that falls, they become disenfranchised, and it's tough because they never had a why when they began, And but I honestly think that everybody has to do that. So I did mine with when Bitcoin and Ethereum initially fell. I panicked. I sold everything, right? So having gone through that, I now know if there's something I'm convicted in, and I truly have belief in it, I can I can weather the markets, I can weather the down, and I can actually accumulate. Like I know you and I were speaking this morning, and at the pricing levels that we are now, for the first time in quite a while, I think I might be throwing out some bids to acquire more. But overall, the biggest lesson I've learned is to just collect with what resonates with you. Therefore, price is almost it's an afterthought.
You know, I played in the main event at the World Series this year, and the main event is the most unique poker tournament actually that you can kind of play in because it's a hefty buy-in, but there's unfortunately what we call it dead money, but there's a lot of like home games that kind of pull a rake from their little home game and then select a winner from their group to represent their group. It's truly like an experience more than just like a professional poker tournament. Um, but everyone that shows up to play in the main event thinks that they're going to win. Everybody that's like when I was playing full time, I would have people say, "Well, I've got $4 billion on Zynga, so I'm a really good poker player. I can, I'm really good at the batting cage. I could have played in the majors." I think that the same mentality is adopted in NFT and crypto in general, where you know they have this little bit of either luck or just like, oh, I know what it is, and they think that they can kind of come in and just spin up a big bankroll. And some people do get lucky, like if for whatever reason you were there and you minted an ape and you just managed to hold on to it for a year, like congratulations. Pretty sure I would have been out of the ape community long before the $300,000-$400,000 all-time highs. Um, do you're very good at fantasy DraftKings. Obviously, you are. Is it two-time winner?
I have two first places and a second place, so I should have three first places and on different weeks. So, we've shown the ability to adopt the lineups over time.
So you've got that, and then obviously poker. Um, what do you take from those two areas? Because there is a plethora of fantasy, guys, and certainly poker players that have come into this space. What is the correlation that you see between those types of people in this space?
I think it's the ability to manage risk, right? As poker players or as thoughtful people. I think that's we should anybody that plays poker, anybody that's doing DFS, you probably have a thoughtful nature to you. So therefore, when you do things, you probably have a plan. You probably know how much you can spend. You probably know, like you probably have a spreadsheet. You're probably tracking what's going down. You probably have a method of measuring engagement when it comes to people talking about certain NFTs. I say that there's probably some kind of process in place where you can take variables, all kind of variables, and analyze them in a way that maybe the average person does not, and therefore it gives you an edge or an advantage. So as somebody who's doing DFS, as somebody who's playing poker, what is my edge in this market? Like how am I able to be more efficient in analyzing the information that other folks may not be? These are all questions that I look at, and I know a lot of other folks do as they make bigger and bigger moves in the NFT space.
One of the biggest lessons I ever learned as I was coming through the ranks in poker, and I was broadcasting as a commentator for poker shows that were streaming, and that got me to connect with some, pretty high profile professionals. And the one lesson that I learned the most was you have to spend more time studying your like gameplay than you actually do even playing, or else you're never going to get better. Like you can, so if I'm spending 40 hours a week playing poker, but I'm not reviewing any of my hands in it, even something as simple as just talking to another poker player that is, ideally at least on your level and just running through scenarios. If you're not doing that, then you were never going to improve as a poker player, no matter how much you played. Like early days of online poker, party poker days, and certainly like full tilt before it got banned in the United States. there were forums, guys just constantly, discussing. If it, to give you an example, like um, heads up, no limit poker or PLO or whatever, but anytime you play heads up, that is the most difficult element really to playing poker to master. And there's a number of guys that are the best in the world. Phil Galfond is probably the most notable. Um, Daniel Cates comes to mind too, and then there was this other guy Isildur. One thing that I learned from these guys is that when they're playing heads up, they have a complete spreadsheet and a history, and they've got a HUD running, and they've got so much more information than just looking at the game. And I think that more people would benefit from having that kind of approach to NFTs. I like what you say about, like, if you like the art, I have some artists that I just genuinely like the art, but when it comes to doing your own research, you should be spending more time probably thumbing through like your Twitters and your Discords and everything than you are just buying and selling.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And just trying to find the conviction in what you're buying and understand what you're doing. Like, so if you are, let's say, you know what, I am trying to make $1 million in 20 minutes. Well, what projects have shown the capabilities of being able to do that? Or am I collecting with the long-term vision and looking to grow with the project? So really, I think one of the first things to do is, who am I in this space? What am I looking to accomplish? And I
Mhm.
think if you can answer those questions, it's much easier to navigate bad markets. We're kind of going through, as we speak actively, the whole FTX Binance situation, which should have dramatic ripples in the NFT space and crypto and everything. Like there's so much that we don't know that's continuing to evolve even by the minute right now. So that's something else to kind of consider in all this stuff.
Is there a way that this whole Binance FTX thing is actually like a blessing in disguise, or is it just it's it's still going to be pretty bleak in your assessment?
Not to go too far into it, but it appears as if FTX was on a shaky foundation with some of its related companies, right? So I think whenever you kind of shake these players loose and you bring more credibility to the marketplace, I think it's a good thing. So now, like, we are being affected in a negative way, but over time, I do see this as a positive for the space.
Well, I think we're getting close to our mark, and you know, I've known your story, and I know a lot of people have been clamoring to know more about you. Probably more about you than me. I'll admit that. Um, but we always have to kind of twist it up a little bit towards the end. So, my question is, I was going back and forth. My first thought was, if name five people that you would want to sit at a poker table with. Um, but I don't want it to be poker centric. So I would just sit there and say, five people that are alive that you could sit down right now and go to dinner with. And it doesn't, like, this isn't, you don't have to be sentimental. You don't have to invite me. Uh,
Oh, that's awesome. I think this is a fantastic question. The first five people that I'd want to have dinner with that are alive. Jordan Peterson,
yeah.
David Goggins, Phil Ivey,
Hmm.
Franksky, and Michael Jordan. I think that would be a great dinner.
Well, Michael Jordan's not paying for that bill. But Phil Ivey will do credit card roulette for sure.
I'm in. I definitely want to play that game with him.
That's great. What tell me about Jordan Peterson, because out of that group, I think he would actually be I think that's the most interesting pick. And I would love to actually hear what he would have to say sitting across from, MJ and certainly Phil Ivey. That's a case study in itself.
I enjoyed Jordan Peterson's ideology, even though he is somewhat
Controversial.
controversial. Yeah, yeah, very much so. I read his books, I listened to his speeches, and I think that from a masculine perspective, I like his ideology. I resonate with a lot of the things that he says, right? So again, I'm not going to go too far into it, but I've if anybody hasn't heard of Jordan Peterson and you're looking to listen to somebody who's extremely intelligent and brings maybe some viewpoints that you've not necessarily considered, I'd highly recommend that.
The reason why I really like that pick over all the other guys is because he actually listens. You know, like he wouldn't dominate the conversation, but boy, when he would say something, your ears would perk up. Big fan of Mr. Peterson myself. David Goggins might control the whole conversation. You know, what do you mean
Tell
you
me,
need macaroni and cheese? You need to get out and run 100 miles.
tell me you wouldn't want to have dinner or lunch with that guy. Wouldn't that be fantastic? I just want to be I'd want to be around that dude just to have some of that kind of brush off on me.
I mean, yeah, but I've heard people that like if you ended up getting on a text chain with him, he man, that talk about 4 a.m. Just ran 10 miles. What are you doing, punk? you know?
Yeah, no, it's true though. Like you want that person that's always gonna show up. Like there's always a reason to kind of put your shoes on and to go hard every single day. So I appreciate that as his message.
Yeah.
And then Phil, he's just the goat. Like I mean, how do you not like Phil?
He's I feel like he's one of those like your initial thought would be that he's really quiet, but I bet when he's at that table like he's pretty engaged, you know. And I will say it's there is something to the elite like it's just like a look and like an aura. And I've played, I haven't sat at the same table as Phil, but I've played and he's been playing at the table next to me. I've certainly seen him playing live many times, and it's just like I kudos to the guys that sit there and go and are playing against him, because he just had it's almost like it's not even like a scary stare, but he just looks at him like you're just so beneath me.
I've got a friend who's in broadcasting and he's with the Bears and he had to fly to New England after they win and he interviewed some of the Bears and then he goes to the podium to interview Bill Belichick and he said that like when that guy walked in
hmm
there was like the climate change, like the air about Bill Belichick when he came in that room, like everything changed. And I imagine like facing Phil Ivey at a poker table with that stare, like I'm looking into your soul and your blood cells and everything. I imagine it's kind of similar.
My last mention of Phil Ivey on this podcast is he started this thing called Ivy Poker. And when he first started, it was when a lot of people were starting to do like poker training videos. Life coaching was huge, like business coaching, like 5, 6 years ago. And I watched like a handful of his video, like poker tutorials. And like there's some really good ones, like Phil Galfond and Jonathan Little are masters at like really teaching you and explaining why to make this move versus that move. And Ivy's just like doing it online. He's like, I kind of know this guy. He ain't got the stones to do this. All in. It's like
Right.
it's just there's you can't teach Ivy. That's what it is. Um, there was one question, and this is what we're going to end on, to bring it back to sports. And I thought of you, the great Nick Saban of Alabama, which you're a fan of, and you
Yes.
bring up Bill Belichick. Who wins a title first? Because they're
Well,
both tough seasons.
Nick Saban cannot win a champ. Well, I guess he's still kind of mathematically possible, and the Patriots can't do it. I think it's actually easier for college football, right? Given the recruiting portal now, with able to get transfers and recruiting, where Bill's kind of stuck with his team for a while. So I do think I think it's Saban. But I just when it comes to a Saban, when it comes to Goggins, when it comes to there's just a kind of reoccurring theme, and it's just do the work.
Mhm.
Follow the process, do the work, and success happens. So I'm a big fan of all those guys.
That's it, man. And hopefully, that's what I'm waiting for. Mike is gonna adopt. Maybe he's got that Saban Belichick swag. We just we haven't seen it flex yet. but uh, but he's our
And I
third.
guess I'll kind of end in one thing, and this is kind of to all the folks that are in the community right now. Like I personally think that the markets are bad and they can get worse, right? So whenever we have situations like this, it's important just to understand why we're in the project and that the storm doesn't last forever, and it's actually important to go through the storm so we can get to the other side. So with that, like I think that Aku is by far one of my favorite projects in the space. And
Mhm.
I do believe under the direction of Micah and the energy and the thoughtfulness that he puts in that we can make it out of the other side.
You know, it's interesting because we don't hear enough about what Summer's doing. You know, I I know she works tirelessly and she's definitely behind the curtain. But the amount of work and energy that she's in, she's traveling and running around just as much as Micah and keeping it all together. And certainly RD. Props to him. That was a great hire, and he certainly has brought like an energy and light to the project. And we're still it's 2 years. It's coming up on 2 years that we've been. It feels like it's been much longer, and it's certainly been a good ride so far. And I can't. As much as I want to be realistic, sometimes like I enjoy drinking the Kool-Aid too much sometimes, and I'm okay with that because I think what they're working on um, not only has the potential, but definitely has the effort behind it. So, any closing words, Mr. Levox?
I'm a big fan of ramen. So the folks listening to this podcast, if you have any ramen recommendations throughout the U.S., please DM me. I would definitely be interested. If you go to Chicago, I highly recommend Kitikana Ramen. It's in Hoffman Estates, which is a suburb about it's like 20 minutes from the airport. So if you land at O'Hare and you're like, you know what? I really, really want to get some ramen. I highly recommend that you take an Uber to Hoffman Estates. It's probably going to cost you like 16 bucks. Go to Kitikana Ramen, and they have a what's it called? It's this the Chanshu Ramen. It's about 15 bucks, and it's a delight. It's a treat. It's amazing. Highly recommend it. Props to Kititana Ramen. There you go.
Well, it is brutally cold and rainy here in Los Angeles, so a bowl of ramen would be perfect.
Sounds great.
I was setting you up. You thought you were going to bust my balls for saying LA was cold. Uh,
Oh,
but
I don't even entertain that anymore. Like to you, like 76 degrees is cold outside for you, so I don't
that's
even entertain it anymore.
56 is brutal. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you jumping on LoveOx, and certainly want to thank all of the members of the Aku community and those of you that are just viewing us and interested in Aku. These stories are what Aku is all about. Certainly like, comment, subscribe, all those good things. It helps us, and it certainly helps Micah and his vision, which really that's what we're here for. And like I said, it's been one hell of a ride so far, and it just keeps getting better. And this train is, picking up steam. Don't worry about the market. If you believe in the art in the project, we'll keep trucking along. So for that, for LoveOx, I'm JWoww. We will see you